Ooh, good morning or good afternoon. Hello, everybody. I hope all of you are having the most laid back day possible. I am personally very, very jet lagged. So, even though you all are always very gentle and always helpful, I'm going to ask please go ahead and let me know if you spot a line of the code that looks weird or if you've got any, hey, do this next suggestions. But what we're going to do today should be pretty laid back. We're going to review some CSS and we're going to learn a little bit about some animation. Yeah, I don't think this can hurt us. So we're going to jump right in. And this is a nice short lesson. I'm still going to try and bail out a little bit before the end of the lesson, just because CSS animation is really fun and I don't want to steal all of the fun away from you. Let's get to start our project and take a look at, oh, this looks really exciting. So we should have a circle sort of cut into a pie with the lines intersect. And then we should have these Ferris wheel boxes turning and changing colors as they turn. Okay. So let's look at what we've got. We've got our doc type, HTML. Okay. We've done this a lot, so I might skip this one just because we're pretty familiar. If you're not, I'm sorry. So this is just our structure, doc type, HTML link. And I am cheating, skipping all these. Uh, but I don't want to get too bogged down into the structure we've done a bunch of times before. I do want to get super bogged down into the CSS stuff. So what we're going to do first is we're going to build these divs. We're going to make our invisible rectangles that will hold the styled CSS. Okay. That will really apply our CSS styles to. That makes more sense. So we're going to create a div. Okay. We saw from streaming with Ramon yesterday that actually these divs are really, really good about self-closing if you use a modern text editor. So we've got this, and we're going to set this div. We're going to have a class. I think this could be an ID as well, because we're probably only going to have one wheel. Well, and here inside it, we're going to have spans. And a span is like a div. It just tells us a little bit more about what's going on here. Yeah, that. And all of these are going to have a class set to line. Okay, that seems really laid back. Even. So we want 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just going through very fast with a copy and paste. And now 6 div elements with a class is going to be set to cabin. Okay, so this still seems nice and low key. This still seems like it's not actively going to hurt us. Got 1. I'm going to paste 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm hopeful. Oh, our wheel element should have 6 div elements within. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just a matter of being able to count, isn't it? Our green stripe and everything is okay. So we're going to create our selector for our wheel element, and this is going to be a class selector. So we're going to use that full stop first. Pop, wheel. We've got our curly babies. That's where we're going to set our rules. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set a border. We're going to set that to 2 pixels. We want it to be solid. We want it to be black. Okay. Well, that's not as satisfying as I'd like it to be. We were promised a wheel, and instead we've got sort of a thick black line, a 2 pixel thick black line. And do you know what I think the issue is? Is that our wheel, like any other HTML element, starts out as a conceptual rectangle, but this one doesn't really have any width, except for the 2 pixels around its imaginary potential rectangle. What we're going to do here is we're going to set a border radius. Remember that border radius is how bendy we want to make a rectangle. We're going to set that to 50%. Oh, a very subtle change where our square line is now an oval line. I think we can turn this into a circle by setting the width and the height of this in a second. But let's also set our margin left. We're going to set that to 50 pixels. That hasn't done much because all that did is sort of move it over to the left, gave us 50 pixels of personal space outside our element. Let's check our code. That's green. That's fine. We're going to position this to absolute. And this says, hey, browser, when you're setting the rules for where this goes, exclude it from the usual flow. It's special. ABSOLUTE. I spelled absolution right, put position wrong. Absolutely. Position. Look. Oh, that's. When I said position absolute, it turned into a little tiny baby dot. How weird. How nice. Let's go. Oh, let's move cats off. Cats, worst cats. Bro. We just set our height and our width both to be 55% of the view width. Okay. 55 view width. Oh, and now we see this element is stretched out a little more than half of our available view width. We're going to do that again to the width. We're going to set that to 55. And I was kind of sure that once we gave it some dimensions for both height and some width, this would look like a circle. And I'm pretty satisfied with this. And do you know what's great is the automatic checker is satisfied as well. Let's keep bopping on. Oh, we got a new, the bear. So just to remind you, the bootcamp you're participating now, hello, is always completely free. If somebody comes and tries to get money off of you from it, something's gone very wrong. But free code camp, also in the name free, it is a registered nonprofit. So if you have $5 a month and you want to, it's a really solid thing to donate. But please, please, please do not donate money you don't have. So let's give it a max width and a max height, both set to 500 pixels. And this is saying, hey, I always want this to be 55% of the view width, unless the view width is really big, then I want the size to max out at 500 pixels. Okay, we got max height, max width. Okay, and this means that if I stretch this well out, this stretch, that eventually we should hit a point where it just doesn't get any bigger. Ooh. Oh, and that's true. So it gets as big as it wants to get and then no bigger. Let's submit and go to the next challenge. We've got our green stripe. Everything continues to be fine. Let's create a selector for our line elements. So these were a class as well. So we've got that full stop. We've got our wiggly babies where it lives. Yeah. Oh, and this is such a good point. And Ramon is saying, do you know what? The view width depends on the size of your viewport. Not really the size of your screen, but it can be the window tab. Or if you're using a mobile phone, it can be the size of your whole screen. Ramon, so patient, so delightful. Here are line elements. We're going to set the background color to black. We're going to spell background. Width. 50%. Height. 2 pixels. A whole bunch of nothing happened so far. But we've got a green box. So this green stripe suggests that we're going to see our lines drawn out in a second. Okay, so the position, let's set these position to absolute. We're going to set our left to 50%. We're going to set our top to 50%. Oh, so we are seeing a half line drawn in here. We had 6 of these. I bet we're going to set different rules for these and stretch them out in a second. Oh, thank you. Just getting a cat off the counter. Look how fast we're going. This is so nice. So the transform origin property, this is brand new. I don't think we've played this before. And this is, oh, hello. So what this is going to do is this is going to let us set a point around which a transformation is applied. And think of this as maybe um, maybe the focal point in a room, maybe a centerpiece in your table, and you're decorating around it. But here, we're going to set a transform. So we're going to perform a rotate. Yeah. And the transform origin determines where you rotate around. Okay. So we're going to first give this so our line selector, I'm going to come in here. Let's go ahead and do this at the top just so we can see the instructions at the same time. And what we're going to do is I'm even going to copy and paste transform origin because I'm feeling a little bit unclever today, and it is super okay to have a day when you feel super clever. And we're going to set it first to 0%. And this 0 is going to offset it from the top, setting it. And the second one, so it's going to set it from the left and then the top. All right. We've got our green line. It hasn't really done anything yet, though. That's a little bit disappointing. Let's pop to our next challenge and see what this wants to do. So we're going to target, oh gosh, remind me how to do this. We want to target our nth element. We want to target our second line element. I definitely remember this is possible, but target second element. I'm just going to my search engine of choice and searching for target second instance of a CSS class. Oh, nth of type. Yeah. I completely forgot how to do this, but it's not going to hurt us. So I want line nth of type 2. Oh, hello, learner. Everything's fine. And I think this might be the syntax. And do you know what? If it's not, it is not going to hurt us a single bit. So we're going to set the transform. I think we'll see pretty fast if this doesn't work and it's not going to hurt us a bit. We're going to use this rotate function. And we're going to set it to 60 degrees. Well, that's very satisfying. I was not prepared for this to work, but we said, hey, go ahead and target the second line, the nth of type, and then I want you to rotate it 60 degrees out. That's very satisfying. Let's check we've got that green line, but more importantly, we immediately got that visual feedback that our little Pac-Man baby is ready to go. So we're going to use the same pattern, creating separate selectors for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And do you know what? I'm going to be the laziest possible. And there's a book called Laziness Does Not Exist that I really like. But sometimes I like to think of laziness as this very soft gift to yourself. The third one is going to rotate 120 degrees. So when I say, oh, I'm being a little bit lazy, that's not me being mean to myself. That's me being very joyful. I'm going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to set this for the 4th one. We're going to rotate the 4th one 180 degrees. Copy and paste this syntax again and change the nth of type to the 5th. And the 5th one, we're going to rotate out to 240 degrees. Okay. It's really the whole wide world. We're going to do the 6th one, and this is the last one. I think the 6th one was 300 degrees. The whole world is so big and loud and stressful. So we're seeing it's got a circle with little pie pieces cut out. I'm moderately confident that we're gonna get our green stripe and bop on. Amazing, stunning. So we're gonna create the cabin selector. So we're kind of doing so far is drawing out these different elements. We're gonna set a class selector, which has got that dot. We're gonna set our background color. And what do you think this is gonna do when this is done? I don't think it's gonna do much yet. Because, oh, it doesn't do much now, but now I'm gonna set the width to 20%. And remember, by default, 205. 20% by default is gonna be 20% of its parent element. So 20% of the div that contains the wheel in the cabins. Or 20% of the div that makes up the wheel that contains the cabins. Whew. And we don't see anything yet because we don't have a height. Let's also set that height to 20%. Get that. Okay. We do see something now, but I'm not quite sure that's what we want. We've got a green stripe. I bet we're going to continue to style. Let's give it a position of absolute. Ooh, okay. So now it's a little square. I do appreciate you being a fixed square now. That's what we expected. And let's give you a border. You just say 2 pixels and salt. And by default, this is black, so it's going to make it a black border for us. Code. Everything continues to be fine. So we're going to use this transform origin property again. And we're going to set it to 50% and 0. And that's going to set the origin point to 50% from the left and 0 from the top. So boop, boop. Boop, boop, being very technical terms, aren't they? Transform origin. Set it to 50% and 0%. Okay. That's not what I expected you to do. But you know what? My code passes. If my code passes, my code passes. Time to position the, this is going to feel exactly like we just did, isn't it? So we're going to select the first cabin. And do you know what we can do? If we're not quite sure, we can come and get this syntax from earlier, this oomph of type, and we can copy it down here. It's not going to hurt us. What I'm going to, we're not selecting lines anymore, though. We're selecting cabins. Oh, and as soon as we saw the second one, but that's not what I'm going to do. So you say, hey, this first oomph of type, and I don't want it to rotate. I want to set a right property. So I'm not using a transform here. I'm going to set a right to minus 8.5%. A little fuzzy here. We're going to set a top of 50%. Okay. Oh, I was thinking it seems weird that we're seeing 2 of these now, but do you know what's going on? It didn't occur to me for a whole second. Right here, where we see the one in sort of the top quarter, I think that this is all of the rest of our 5 of them stacked on top of each other. And that when we moved the first one, we moved it and we could see the second one because this is where the stack of the rest of them are. Our code says it's okay, so we're going to keep going. Okay, so we're going to continue our pattern. We're going to copy and paste this because we like to be gentle to ourselves. What we're going to do, so there's 6 of these in total. So what I'm going to do is 2. I'm going to set a top and a right for each of these. So I'm going to delete these. And I'm going to copy this. Type 3. I'm going to, hang on, let's grab this. The second cabin, 17% and 93.5. Oh, I'm going to, so 17%. Top should be set to 93.5. That seems like a weird place for you to oh, percent. I was gonna say, I don't think that's where you're supposed to sit. And then the third should have 67 and 93.5. Okay. And these 93.5s a lot. Our fourth, let's go ahead and make a fourth cabin. Do you know what? Let's just go 24th. That's not going to work. A fifth. Let's make a sixth. And while we're doing this, let's go ahead and come all the way back up. And let's just get the rest of these. So our fourth should have negative 8.5 and 50. Okay. Negative 8.5% and then 50%. Are you sure? Okay. The fifth is 17 and 7. And then we've just got one more to go. One of these feels a little bit off, but well, who are you? Let's check that out. We'll get an error for the one that doesn't work. And the six should be 17 and 7, 17%. Seems wrong. Okay, so nth of type third should have 93.5%. So third, oh, ha ha ha, missing that percentage. Oh, and we've got a second. This still doesn't feel quite right. Are you going to give me a couple more error messages? A left, so our fourth one should have a left of negative. Oh, a left property. I'm going to check our code because I think one more of these, the fifth, should have left instead of right. Y'all are patient as the day is long with me skimming. That looks right-ish. And do you know what? The tests think it looks rightish as well. Let's bop on. Keyframes. So we're just starting to get into animations. This is super chill and super nice. Keyframes are rules you can set that determine the flow of a CSS animation. And here what you're saying is at these different points in the sequence, here's how far I want this animation to go. So keyframes rules require a name to be assigned to them. So it's going to feel a little bit like creating a function, which we'll learn about more we'll learn about more tomorrow. We'll also learn about more when we do JavaScript if you want to come back for the JavaScript bootcamp with us. So when we set a keyframes rule, we create a name. And then whenever we use those keyframes, we reference the name. Okay. So we're going to create a keyframes. Is it just keyframes? Is that it? That's it. Okay. I wasn't sure about the syntax, but that's just fine. So now we have to determine how our animation should start. First, so we start with a 0%. So whatever you set the 0% on is what's going to go. So we say 0% here where it says 12%, and then we use our curly babies to nest those rules. Okay. Here, I'm going to say 0%. And this feels a little weird because we're putting curly babies in our curly babies. We haven't done that before. Do you know what? It just says to create the rule. It doesn't say to do anything. So that's actually fine. I think we're going to set the rule next step. The 0%, we're going to give this a transform property. Rotate 0 degrees. And you say, well, Jess, that means not rotate. I say, it's chill. Rotating 0 degrees doesn't feel like animation yet, but this is just where our animation starts. So when I think we're going to check our code And this is green. This is saying, cool, this is where your animation starts. And then our 100% selector. So we're looking, here's our 0%. Here's the curly braces where it starts and stops. So we want to put this on another line. It's our 100% selector. Got our curly braces again. And here we're going to say, okay, we want our transform property again. Now I want to say rotate 360 degrees. So within our animation, we want to go from 0. And when the animation's finished, we want it to rotate all the way around once. Okay. And I still don't think it's going to do anything. I think that we need time. Let's bob to our next challenge. Haha. So now the animation name property is used to link a keyframes rule to the CSS selector. This seems weird, but let's try it a couple times and see how it feels. So let's give our wheel selector the animation name property and say, oh, I know what's going on. So here, where are we? Where are you? Where am I? Where have you gone? When we did this keyframes wheel, even though this is called wheel, and for a human reading this, we know it's probably going to be applied to the wheel, CSS doesn't read especially well. So we need to tell CSS explicitly, hey, I want to connect you to, I want to give you this animation. We're going to sort of equip the animation. Animation, wheel. Okay. Oh, and now we're going to set an animation duration. I think this is going to handle that issue we just saw with this not working. Because there's no time. We say go from 0 to 100% to do these things, but we don't say how long this should take. So when we set an animation duration, it can be set in seconds or milliseconds. And here we're going to set it to take 10 seconds. So we do see that the whole wheel spins, but it's kind of clunky. We don't see the color change. We don't see the cabins moving separately. But as promised, it did indeed take 10 seconds to do one full rotation. Very cool. We've got a green stripe. Everything's fine. And you notice that when it reloaded, oh, that's important. When it reloaded, it played the animation again. And I think we're probably going to talk about this in a minute, but that's because the default behavior is to do the animation on load. We'll talk about that. So we're going to say the animated timing function. We're going to set that to linear. And the linear is just, there's different types of ways to load your animation. And this one's just going to give us a smoother way to do it. It's almost imperceptible, but it just looks a little bit smoother. Oh, and we want it to, I've read exactly half of this. We also want it to keep going. Right now it spins once and stops. So we're going to set the animation iteration count. And iteration is a fancy word in computing that just means how many times you want to do something. Iteration, infinite. We're going to wait. We're going to chill out. And I think this is going to go around once. I think it's just going to keep spinning. And I think the linear function here, the linear property here is going to mean it just continues to move nice and smooth. To check our code, we've got a little green stripe. Everything's fine. I'm only going to do one or two more of these, not just because I'm mean, but because this is really rewarding to play with. I really want to make sure that we don't take up all of these. I want to make sure we leave you some of these to experiment with on your own. Ooh, and this is a great place to start experimenting because we're going to do exactly what we did up here, down here, where we've got these keyframes. And that felt a little choppy the very first time we did it. But we're going to do it again. We're going to do it with a little bit more confidence. keyframe again. We're saying cabins. And we already know this is probably going to be the animation we apply to our cabins. But don't forget that we're still going to have to go into our cabins class selector for CSS and expressly say, hey, 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 I want to give you this animation property. Oh, so we're going to copy both the 0 and 100% rules, but we're going to set the transform property at the 100 to. Oh, okay. Okay. So I love it because this is expressly saying, hey, just go steal your previous work. But it said, I want you to make a little change. While the wheel's going clockwise, I want you to rotate counterclockwise. So I'm going to set this to rotate minus 360 degrees. And that doesn't do anything yet because we haven't given cabins this keyframe. We haven't attached this animation to it yet. All right. Within our wheel selector, so we're going to do the same thing as we did with our cabin selector. We use the animation property. Oh, so instead of setting, let's look at what we did with our wheel selector. Within our wheel selector, we created 4 different properties to control the animation. Let's look at that. Let's review those. Where are you, wheel? Ahaha. So we set the animation name, the animation duration, the iteration count, and we set the timing function. But we can set all of these at once using just the animation property. Okay. So first, animation. We're going to say, we're going to use the cabin animation. We're going to set it to 10 seconds as well. It's also going to be linear. Well, you might notice that it broke all the other CSS under it, and that's just because I didn't have that semicolon that we need. Cabin 10-second linear infinite. Hmm. I don't think this is my cabin select. I'm going to copy and paste this because what I'm low-key suspicious of. Cabins. Thank you so much. Cabins plural, a nice little tiny typo. So we're going to check our code. We've got that green stripe now. Let's just do one or let's do 2 more because I think the next one's going to be color. We can set a ease in and out timing function. And this is going to start the animation a little bit more slowly and go speed up and then end a little bit more slowly. So linears apply the same timing all the time. Ease in and out is what we're going to try for the cabin. I think this is going to be a very, very subtle change. So we're going to change this in here to ease in and out. And do you know what? With my little old lady eyes, I can't see much of a difference, but I bet we're going to get a green stripe, and that assures me that it's probably fine. Oh, so here, let's get through the background color. I want to make sure that I'm not doing all of these for you. I'd be a terrible teacher if I did. But here in the 0, I want to set the background collector. Background collector? Background color. I'm going to set that to yellow. Oh, so it goes from yellow and then it's changing back to red over time. That's pretty cool. Let's do exactly one more. I know it's a very short lesson today, but it's a very, very short lesson. We're going to add a 50%. So right now it slowly changes from yellow to red. That's very satisfying. Let's add a 50% selector. Let's add a little bit more granularity in here. Oh, and you notice that this didn't work very well because I'm trying to define it inside the 0%. That's not where I want to live. Here, I'm going to give you a little space. I'm going to set the background color, and I want to set that to purple. Now it's going to start yellow. It's going to turn purple when it's about halfway, 50%, and then slowly into red, and then back into yellow and purple. Oh, Oh, it kind of flashes to purple between red and yellow. I'm not loving that. But the exciting thing is, I bet that this is ha ha ha. This is what you're going to have to change all by yourself next. Isn't it cruel? Isn't it terrible? But there's only 3 little tiny lessons left. I'm very, very sorry to abandon you halfway through. Not even halfway. But I promise that this is going to be really satisfying to try on your own. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. Oh, and I'm going to get rid of this. And while I'm waiting to see if we have any questions, let's talk my favorite topic of the day. Let's talk home. Oh, wait, no, let's talk about other streams today. And then let's talk homework. So other streams is in about an hour. Ramon is going to be joined by oh gosh, it's completely slipped my mind. Oh, it's Phil. Phil from Netlify is going to be coming and giving us a more in-depth look at how Netlify works. And then if you come back in about 10 hours, is that true? No, not that far. If you come back about 9 hours, I don't know how time zones work anymore. I'm so sorry, my loves. If you come back way later, then Ramon and I will also be doing a Couchbase partner session where we're going to be taking the last project we looked at together, which is the product landing page. And we're going to be continuing to build this out using real world tools, including Netlify. So you could come on back in a couple of hours for Ramon or come back way, way, way far from now. But your homework is go ahead and see if you can finish up the animations on your own. It's a really and usually I say, "Oh, don't skip ahead if you're not at this lesson." This would go ahead and skip ahead. The CSS animations are really, really rewarding. I'd love for you to have this experience. But your most important homework, which is going to be very repetitive, is to be as gentle to yourself as you can. Programming is so stressful. The world is so stressful. Do you know what? Just be as soft and gentle as you can until the next time we chat. I will let you go, and I massively appreciate getting to learn with you today. Bye, my loves.